Sub flappers, misunderstanding. Have you ever had them in your life? When your good, faithful intentions just don't seem to get across to the other party properly, or they interpret you and your intentions in a different way. Now today in Genshin Impact, I want to talk a little bit about two of the most misunderstood characters. We'll focus a little more on one of them, but there are actually two that I think suffers from this more than the others. So without further ado, like, subscribe if you enjoy this kind of content. Let me jump right into game right now. Okay, and the first one, as you already see, it's gonna be Klee, my girl. FBI, open up! No, my daughter. Yes, I do think people misunderstand her so very much, so often, and it has nothing to do with the people, right? It's really to do with content and how we center a lot of the characters. It's kind of like people want everyone to do damage. That's not a secret. Go look around. It's not a secret. I think it's part of content culture nowadays in Genshin Impact to try to turn every single unit into a main DPS. And currently with the two characters you see on screen here, Klee and Child, they suffered from this way before I would even say this culture ever took place, or took shape, I should say. Because currently I feel like Klee, if we go into her skills, and I feel like while yes, she doesn't suffer from this as much as Child we'll talk about later, as we grow into her constellations, you will quickly see that Klee changes in playstyles, and it opens up new doors for her to be played, and actually it shifts her away from the potential of being a main DPS. And actually Child is the exact opposite, I would say. Okay, so Klee, as you can see in her C4, which is so perfectly named because she quite literally turns into a bomb, right? She now gets access with Constellation 4 into this quick swap nuke that you can have on your team. While yes, everybody can be a main DPS, I mean, for hell, we have DPS Barbara out there just clapping cheeks, right? It's nothing new, I would say. But why am I talking about this? Why am I stressing about this? It's because I feel like as newer characters start to get released, miHoYo is constantly trying. If you haven't noticed, miHoYo tries very hard to not make the same character twice, right? So miHoYo is constantly trying to find new ways for us to engage with the different characters to play the game. And currently, if they eventually do run out of ways to build characters, they will definitely build them into constellations. And with that said, let's move into Child. What? What the As the title of this video says, is the most misunderstood character, I think, in Genshin Impact. It was the same on his release. Even to this day, I think a lot of people, I would say the vast majority of people would still consider Child a main DPS, which it's just simply not true, okay? Especially if you have him at C0. One of the main reasons for that is simply because of his uptime. And if we're talking about his uptime, it really has to come down to his elemental skill, Foul Legacy, Raging Tide, right? So what ends up happening is, I'm sure you guys know this, right? His E isn't permanent. You cannot stay in this stance forever. You can deal a lot of damage with this, and it's great with a lot of different synergies. With Pyro, right, you get vaporized. And even for some freeze comps, you can create entire CC zones with Child here, right? We just do some of his attacks, and then it's over. And he's on an 18-second, 20-second cooldown. So when we talk about Child, if you ever heard about this term, it's called enabler or hydro applicator. It's basically saying he applies elements. He applies the hydro element, and he can deal a ton of damage. Yes, but it's windowed damage. It's very limited to this certain time frame, and it's not great to be a main DPS. When we think of main DPS, they shoulder the burden of the entire team sometimes, being a hyper carry, such as Eula, such as Razor, whereas Child is the exact opposite. He excels in very short burst windows. Remember when I was talking about how Klee eventually becomes like that with C4? That becomes an option of a playstyle. Child is an opposite. In the very beginning, he is only acceptable to be put into a role of temperament, right? Very temporary. In the moment, deal lots of damage, swap him out. And that's why I do think Child fits a lot better in either the support DPS position or just straight up burst support. Build him for EM, go for burst support. Very, very powerful build. But people just have this mentality that everybody has to be a main DPS. If this character cannot be a main DPS, maybe something is wrong with the character. Whereas I think miHoYo is trying hard to have more defined roles for these characters. And like I said, they can build the option to play them in other ways into the constellations. And while I do think miHoYo has revamped character constellations through the post-Zhongli era, right, with Wu Tao Ganyu, with all these new characters, Kazuha, I would assume, Eula, I do think that these older characters did have some sort of flair into their constellations. Remember when we thought, wow, Child, when we first came out, everybody's knee-jerk reaction was Child is not good because in order to play him as a main DPS, you have to unlock C6. And I think we were so we missed the point by so far off. Like it wasn't even close. It just shot past us. We didn't get it. miHoYo was basically saying, here is a very unique character meant and designed to be played in this certain manner, but we as the player base were trying to force him to become the main character. It's like, wow, look at those flashy attacks, he has to be a main character. We missed the point. And as miHoYo says, hey, if you want to make him a main carry, here's the option to do so for $1,300. $1,300. What a ripoff, first and foremost. But the option is there. And Klee, you know, she's a main character, but if you want to turn her into an absolute bomb, C4, the option is there. And this is why I think Child and Klee are both misunderstood. And I think going forward, we really need to start understanding how characters are, what their kits are meant to be. And of course, we have the infamous character. One moment here. Yes, Ganyu. Okay, so I know there's a meme with Tectone and all, but I just want to say, I want to admit, have my hands up here, I also thought Ganyu was going to be a support. It's just what her kit looked like it was going to be. And when the numbers came out, she was so efficient at being a main DPS, especially as you move towards a C4, she essentially becomes like this bolt action shotgun at C6. It's just built into the kit, right? If you have Ganyu at C0, she can be this long range snipe, and as she get more constellations, she turns into this bolt action shotgun. It's really like we see something and we misinterpret its intentions. Well, I guess in this case, we're talking about miHoYo's intentions. So in the end, it's kind of like the situations where you're in high school and your crush lends you an eraser or something, and you start having flashes of your entire lives together. It's kind of like that, right? I'm sure we're looking at characters, we're looking at Kazuha. A lot of people probably are thinking, how do I make this character a main DPS? Right? And maybe it's built into his constellation somewhere. But for most of these characters, I think miHoYo is doing a great job. I really prefer to keep them in the roles that miHoYo has designed for them. And I've made a video about this, talking about Ganyu and why I can't play Ganyu as the main DPS. And I don't really play her as the main DPS that much, simply because it's not for me, and I find her supporting utilities much better. I almost always, if not actually nowadays, I always play Tartaglia, Child in the support DPS position, or pure burst support. I don't play him as the main DPS, and I found these characters to be so much better as long as you can pair them, find good partners for them in teams, right? Klee works really well currently as the main DPS, but eventually as you get constellations on her, I do think her value starts to shift as well into becoming more burst supporty, or just a support DPS with burst DPS capabilities. And I think that's the beauty of Genshin Impact. And so I just made this video because I've seen a lot of people very confused in a lot of my comment sections. I make some guide videos, I make some discussion videos, and I always get people asking that, hey, you know, my character isn't performing so well, like, what do you think I should do? Here's my team. It's like, oh, there's your problem, right? So I hope people, you start understanding this more. I do want to talk about this more, but first, give me some questions. I want to hear what you guys think. But let's leave it at that today. Thank you guys so much for watching, and once again, I urge you all to subscribe, like it, share it if you have a friend who is still trying to make main DPS C0 main DPS child work. But until tomorrow's video, stay safe and peace.